If you are a battle-ready painter, just like me, my friends, then I'm going to show you simple techniques and tools and the paints that we use to get this pretty decent finish on Commander Dante, the new Blood Angels model. So let's dive into this video. So for my Dante, I gave him a little bit of conversion. He has those Firstborn Sanguinor wings, and we also have a Bloodthirster head on the base provided to me by a friend that played demons. So we spray him black. I like to use the Color Forge sprays. You can also use Chaos Black by Games Workshop. And then I'm going to spray him gold. Now I use the Color Forge spray again for the gold because it's about half the price of Retributor Armour Gold, which is the GW one. I'll put a link at the end of the video if you want to buy the gold paint here in the UK. It's half the price. It's amazing. So I masked them off because I didn't want the wings to be gold because I'm not going to be painting them anything like gold. So then we spray and you can see how vibrant and good this gold is on top of the black. And then I like to start with like some simple greys. So we've got Celestra Grey for the wings. We also have a layer brush, and then we also have Dawnstone. So I get straight into it. We're going to put the Celestra Grey onto these wings. Putting this light grey over black is never going to work with a single coat, and pretty much my entire paint job is going to be 2 thin coats. So we're not going to do too many difficult steps in this video, right? Like, there is no advanced techniques. This is a battle ready model, but I think I can get pretty good effects from battle ready. So once we've got the Celestra Grey on the wings, then I start going everywhere that's going to be metallic or metal. And for metal, I usually end up using Leadbeltcher, but we'll go into the recesses of his armor joints, and there are a lot. And I like to put Dawnstone into these. I always find if you put Leadbeltcher over the top of Dawnstone, it works very, very well. And then also we're going to jump onto Ushabti Bone and Zandri Dust. Zandri Dust is the colour that I use for my bases. Ushabti Bone is going to be used for all the parchment on the purity seals. So once again, we're just going to do a first coat, and we'll be jumping back with these same colours. You might not always see that in this video, but we definitely are going to give every bit of the model second coat. And you can see here all the details that we picked out in Dawnstone, and you can also see that we do the base, and pretty much anytime you paint a light color over a black color, you can see straight away on that base that it's going to need multiple coats. So this is where we are, and you can get a pretty stunning effect just by painting these multiple coats nice and simply. And then also, I mean, we trim the base. That's the way I like to do the bases, is we trim them with the black. For the axe, we're going to do the Fang as a base colour. Now this is a nice vibrant blue, and again, now that we're painting over the top of gold, we are going to need multiple coats, you guessed it. So that's what the axe would look like after one coat. So Mepiston Red is the next colour, and I'm going to use this actually on his cape. Now a lot of people have maybe done the cape purple. I'm sure I've done the cape purple on a different model, but I figured he's so gold, Mepiston Red was the choice for me for the cape. And then I like to do the wreath on his hair. I realise I've put an absolute terrible angle of me painting the wreath on this hair, but here it is. I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm just putting a coat of green paint over there, and then decided to take the purple and do the axe handle. Again, you could do the axe handle leather, but purple seems like it's more ornate or something a little bit more exciting. And then after that, it's on to white. And for the white, I'm going to put it on all the little wings around his armor. You can see here this white paint went on way too thick. If that does happen, instantly clean your brush, put some water on your brush, and then use the water on the brush to help spread the paint out. I didn't water that white down nearly enough. These coats need to be thin, and you can see the white is very quick to add, and I've added it everywhere. At this point, this guy has like loads of colours on him. We could play with him in a tournament. He would be battle ready if you talk about just having 3 colours. So then I grab my texture paint, which is Agrax. No, it's not. It's Armageddon Dust, which I just showed on the screen 2 seconds ago. And it's the more you can slop this on, the better. You do not need to be accurate. If you touch any of the tactical rock that he's on, it will probably just look more natural. So slop that on as thick as you can really get it. And then I had to go back and look at my Firstborn Dante, because I like my army to be cohesive. It's been a long time since I painted him. So I jumped back, and then I started looking at all these other little wing bits, because there is some wings on this new jump pack and stuff like that, and I went back to the same go-to colour that I use on the wings, which is the Celestra Grey. So if you're more organised than I am, you could definitely be painting some of these pieces at the same time. Now we're going to jump onto some Evil Sun Scarlet next, and this is another red that I find very good on Blood Angels. I'm going to put Evil Sun Scarlet on their feet. I like to do this because it helps break them apart from their base. Not many people bother. And I'm also going to give his gun a nice vibrant Evil Sun Scarlet. We're going to need to do 2 coats of this as well, because it will just not give great coverage over the gold. Pretty much all these paints are going to need 2 coats. So this is what we end up looking like at this point. So at this point, again, you could easily play with this guy in competitive play, and I grab my Agrax Earthshade now, which is the correct colour to put over the Armageddon Dust. That is a wash. I'm going to fire it all over the base. Unfortunately, for some reason, I guess when I'm trying to show the base here, the camera is determined to focus on the closest point, which would be its axe. So sorry, this footage is a little bit out of focus. I'm not really sure how to fix that, but I'll figure it out for next time. I then take something like Mournfang Brown, which I think makes a great leather if you put some sort of black wash over the top of it, and I like to paint their belts. Now, some people don't do belts. Again, they might just leave them gold, but I like to paint them. And then we're jumping onto Purity Seals with the Screamer Pink. Once we've done a few Purity Seals, it's back to Evil Sun Scarlet for all these blood drops. Some of my blood drops I'll do in Screamer Pink, some of them I will do in Evil Sun Scarlet. That just gives us a bit of variation between the two. And again, these are very small blood drops, take your time. The only way you're going to get better at these is practice. But it's not a difficult technique, it's just practice. I'm also going to do sometimes the rims of the shoulder pads. We're back to Evil Sun Scarlet here, a nice vibrant red that will contrast with the cloak. And then inside the jump jets, we're going back to a paint we've already used as well, the Fang, which will give us a nice blue inside those jump jets. I missed a few pieces with the Dawnstone, so here we are grabbing some Dawnstone again. A couple of the skull pieces that like accent those wings on his legs. And then I think there must have been the grenades that were attached to his belt. I guess I should have painted them Dawnstone earlier in the process, but we missed them. So, you know, you can jump back if you miss a bit, it's not the end of the world. We then grab a very clean pot of Leadbeltcher and we go into all these armour recesses that we talked about at the start. So this is essentially me getting onto the second coats of certain colours. So I think if you base with Dawnstone, you don't often need to do a second coat of the Leadbeltcher. So the Leadbeltcher is going on top of that Dawnstone. I'm then going to grab Brass Scorpion, which I like to use for stuff like piping. And in this case, we're going to use it for the nozzle of the Meltagun. It'll just be a little bit different. Or Infernal Pistol. I mean, Infernal Pistol is a Meltagun, but you know what I'm trying to say. It'll just be a little bit different from the gold that we've got on the rest of the model. Now our next step is Nuln Oil. And what I like to do with this is coat the wings. And I do this in every single character that has wings. I guess it was more relevant when the Sanguinary Guard had wings, but I guess the Sanguinar and Astrath have wings. So if you're ever looking to do wings for any of the Blood Angels characters, this is a super simple technique. So you just need to grab your Nuln Oil wash, and you want to be quite liberal with this. You can kind of see how much I am clarting on. You want to let it pool a little bit. Normally with washes you probably don't want them to pool, but you want to pool in all the nooks and the crannies there, so you get sort of a reasonable amount of contrast. At this point I'm going to jump back to Celestra Grey and we're going to do all the little wings elsewhere in the body. And I guess if you're not painting big wings because you didn't make your Dante with big wings like I did, then you can use the exact same technique on like the Aquillas on the chest, on the shoulder pads, on these little jump fins. We do the exact same thing. We're going to start with Celestra Grey, and then there's going to be a wash of Nuln Oil over the top afterwards. So at this point I have to do something about this demon on the base, and for all extensive purposes we're going to do some sort of slap chop here, where we've just painted the head black, and I must admit I've never painted a Demon of Khorne before, so I'm just going to give him a very light grey dry brush. And the idea is to pick out some of these lighter tones or raised areas, give them lighter tones. Meanwhile, sometimes I have to go back, right? When you're painting, you make mistakes. Go back and touch up with some Evil Sun Scarlet. And also on the axe, one trick that I like to use with Blood Angels Contrast Red actually is to paint it straight over the gold. So on the wings of the axe here, I guess you would call it like the little wings on the back of the axe. I'm not entirely sure what you call that, but I will just leave that gold, make it bright gold, you know, like maybe even give the Retributor armor gold that was originally on there a spray, And then you can see on the other shoulder pad as well, I've just painted the Blood Angels Red contrast paint right over the top. Now we're going back into this demon skull, and I'm just going to give it a coat of corn red right over the top, I guess, of those raised highlights to just give it a little bit of texture. The red came out, I'm indifferent on how that first coat on the demon head went, and then I went back to all those little other areas that we had painted on to basically give them a smaller Nuln Oil wash, so that we're going to pick out all the details on the chest piece wings, the shoulder pad wings. So there's two really simple ways you can do wings on this model, right? With a Nuln Oil and with the Blood Angels contrast red. So we finish off the little wings on the backpack, and then we do the wreath around Dante's mask with the Nuln Oil. It's now time for some Zandri Dust. And what we're going to do with the Zandri Dust here is do some of the skulls that are attached to his armour. It gives them a nice like bone colour. We'll need to wash them with Nuln Oil later. And then I always like to check in on my progress now and then. And I was really actually starting to feel pretty happy about this model, considering we're not doing any advanced techniques. So now we're going to grab Dry Paint Tyrant Skull. And this is the paint that I use over the base paint we used earlier, the Armageddon Dust. It's a very simple process. We're just going to dry brush that Armageddon Dust, and essentially what that's going to do is going to bring up like a little bit more texture onto the base. And you can see there we've got a few raised stones that the rocks just have a little bit of contrast. And then the next simple step again is Praxxi White, and for this we're going to dry brush those wings. Now this is a great and easy technique for the wings, and it will just highlight all the raised edges. I'm going to do both his wings, and then I'm also going to do all the little wings that were on this body as well. And the way I did the little wings is I took an old dry brush, and you can see this old knackered dry brush here, and I actually cut the bristles on the left and the right side of it to make it smaller. So when I'm trying to do tiny details like this, I'm not going to have like white streaks catching on the wrong pieces of the model. Then we're going back to our Nuln Oil, and we're going to start painting inside all those armor joints. Now there is a lot of armor joints on this model, so may as well just get to it. We're also going to use this time to paint like the piping on his weapon and anything else that was going to be metal. It's going to get a coat of Nuln Oil. What I find this does is it makes the Nuln Oil makes the Leadbeltcher metal look quite gothic, quite gnarly. It's an effect that I really like and I use a lot on my models. So we continue with the Nuln Oil, getting over the various other pieces, those little skulls, really clar it on this base. Sometimes when you're doing a rock like this, you just really clar it with Nuln Oil. I might even double wash that with Nuln Oil. And then I'm going to grab some blue horror and get in on Dante's axe. I like to edge highlight, usually the blade or something, helps stand it out. And I like to try and freehand on some lightning. Now, I am not good at freehanding whatsoever. I found that if you do like 90-degree angles on this, you can actually make it kind of look better. So to start with, just get some lighter paint on here. We're going to come back and clean this up. The first go on the axe actually doesn't look great at all. I'm going to grab the Leadbeltcher. I'm going to do all these little spikes on his iron halo. Maybe do alternate spikes, but just try and do something so it's not just one big blob of gold. And then I grabbed some Evil Sun Scarlet and did that Space Marine helmet that was on the scenic base. This is where we're going to go back to the Fang, and you can see here that I'm going to try and tidy up and maybe make some of those lightning lines a little bit thinner. I think if the lines are a bit thinner, it might look more realistic. And that's really as simple as I'll go with his axe. I then grab Reikland Fleshshade, and I like to put this over the entire golden part of the model. So it's literally as simple as washing all the gold with the Fleshshade. Trying to not let it pool too much in various areas, but yeah, we'll go over even the flat surfaces, just Fleshshade the whole damn thing, and what you'll end up with is a beautiful bronze gold. I'm going to grab Carroburg Crimson, and I'm going to go in on the axe handle, and we really are at the state now where like I am doing a lot of washes on this model. So Carroburg Crimson is a bit of a red paint. put that over the purple axe handle. It will look quite regal. Then we're grabbing either Drakenhof Nightshade or Guilliman Glaze, and we're putting that over the axe blade. And then I'm also going to put it over the jetpack boosters. Now you can use either of these two paints. I tend to use Guilliman Glaze. It's a little bit brighter, but it's hard to get hold of now, so Drakenhof Nightshade is absolutely fine. Basically any blue wash would probably work. At this point I grab a Bloodletter wash, and I'm going to wash this demon head on my base. I don't really know what I'm doing with the demon head, but that's what I did. And then I grabbed a black wash, again Nuln Oil, and did the helmet on the base. So with that done, what we are next is the Bloodletter glaze, and I'm going to put all that over his red cloak. Now obviously you can change out any of these paints, but my whole idea with this video is to try and show you that I can do a good model with very simple techniques. And then I'm going to get like a really dark grey. I'm going to dry brush the horns up on the head of that Bloodthirster. I'm going to go in and paint the eye socket on the head on the base for the Marine, and then I'm going to also try and paint the tongue. I try to use like a mix here of like some white paint, some flesh paint, and some red paint just to give that tongue a little bit more texture. I think I ended up going back and darkening up a little bit with some more red. So this is it. Like, there is no edge highlighting in here, well, apart from that one axe blade. We use a lot of washes. We use very little freehand. And also, honestly, we don't really do anything complicated at all. And this is why I wanted to make this video, to show that using battle ready techniques, which is basically like 2 thin coats and washing, and the tiniest little bit of edge highlighting, you can get a pretty good overall product. So I've put a list of all the paints that I've used on screen here, and it is also in the video description. If you want to ask a question about anything that I did in the video, I will do my very best to answer it. I normally do make more tactics-based YouTube content, but if you could see yourself to like this video or subscribe to the channel if you'd like to see more videos from me, I would be super appreciative. There was a couple of times in this video where I did not show me painting the second coat. I guarantee you any colour I painted over gold, I did the second coat. Remember to do that. You'll know that you need 2 coats to get perfect coverage. Thanks for watching to the end of the video. Have a great week, guys. I hope you enjoyed this. It was something different for me to make, and this actually took me ages. This probably took like somewhere in the region of like 30 hours to make this video, so I hope it was worth it. I hope you could learn something. I will see you in the next video. By the blood are made strong, my friends. Peace.